The alarms screamed inside the cockpit. Red lights flashed everywhere. Smoke filled the small space, and Yuna could barely see the controls in front of her. "Come on, come on," she whispered to herself. Her hands moved fast over the buttons and switches. The ship shook hard, like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Lieutenant Yuna had been flying cargo ships for 6 years. She had seen bad storms. She had flown through asteroid fields. But she had never been shot down by pirates before. The attack had come from nowhere. One moment, she was flying peacefully toward the supply station. The next moment, 3 pirate ships appeared on her screen. They fired without warning. Her shields failed in seconds. Her engine caught fire. And now she was falling toward a moon she knew nothing about. "Mayday, Mayday," she spoke into her radio. "This is cargo vessel Horizon. I am going down." "Repeat, I am going down." "Location unknown. Moon in Sector 7. Please respond." Only static answered her. Yuna pulled hard on the controls. The ship did not want to listen. It wanted to crash nose first into the rocky ground below. She could see the surface now through the smoke. Gray rocks, brown dust, no water, no trees. Nothing green at all. "Not today," Yuna said through her teeth. "I am not dying today." She pulled harder. Her arms hurt. Her shoulders burned. But slowly, the nose of the ship came up. Just a little. Just enough. The ship hit the ground at an angle. It bounced once, twice, 3 times. Metal screamed as it tore apart. Yuna was thrown against her straps. Her head hit something hard. Stars exploded in her eyes, then everything went silent. Yuna did not know how long she was unconscious. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she felt was pain. It was everywhere. In her head, in her chest, in her leg, especially in her leg. She looked down and saw blood. Her left leg was bent in a way that legs should not bend. A piece of metal from the ship had cut deep into her thigh. She could see bone. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. This is bad. But I am alive. I am alive." She had learned in training that the first rule of survival was simple. Do not panic. Panic kills faster than any wound. So Yuna took a deep breath. Then another. Then another. The smoke was clearing. She could see that the front of her ship was completely destroyed. The back part, where she sat, was still mostly whole. That was luck. Pure luck. Yuna reached for her emergency kit. It was under her seat. Her fingers found the handle. And she pulled it out. Inside were bandages, medicine, food packets, water bottles, and a small emergency beacon. First, she needed to stop the bleeding. She took the biggest bandage and wrapped it tight around her thigh. The pain was so strong that she almost screamed. But she did not scream. She bit her lip until she tasted blood, and she kept wrapping. Next, she felt her ribs. 2 of them were broken, maybe 3. Each breath hurt like fire. She wrapped bandages around her chest too. It helped a little. Her head was bleeding from a cut above her eye. She cleaned it and put a small bandage on it. That wound was not serious, but her leg was very serious. She could not walk on it. Maybe she could not walk at all. Yuna activated the emergency beacon. A small green light started blinking. This beacon would send a signal to any ship within range. Someone would come. Someone would find her. But when? That was the question. She looked at her supplies. 3 days of food, 3 days of water. If no one came in 3 days, she would die on this moon. Someone will come, she told herself. Someone always comes. She needed to get out of the ship. The smell of fuel was strong. If there was a spark, the whole thing could explode. Yuna unbuckled her straps and tried to stand. The moment she put weight on her left leg, she collapsed. The pain was too much. Tears ran down her face. But she did not make a sound. She would have to crawl. Yuna pulled herself along the floor of the ship. Every movement sent waves of pain through her body. Her broken ribs made it hard to breathe. Her leg left a trail of blood behind her. The door of the ship was stuck. She kicked it with her good leg. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, it opened. Cold air rushed in. The moon was freezing. Yuna had not expected that. She grabbed her emergency blanket from the kit and wrapped it around herself. Then she crawled outside. The landscape was empty and gray. Rocks everywhere. Dust that looked like ash. In the distance, she could see mountains. The sky was dark, purple. Even though it was daytime, there were 2 suns, both small and far away. Yuna dragged herself about 20 meters from the ship. Then she stopped. She could not go any further. Her body refused to move. She lay on her back and looked up at the strange sky. "I am Lieutenant Yuna of the cargo vessel Horizon," she said to no one. "I am 29 years old. I have a mother and a father back on Earth. I have a younger brother named Tejo. I promised him I would come home for his wedding next year." Saying these things made her feel more real, more alive. "I will not die here," she said. "I refuse." The cold was getting worse. Yuna pulled the blanket tighter. She knew she needed to find shelter. A cave, maybe. Something to protect her from the wind and the cold night that would come. But first, she needed to rest. Just for a moment. Just to gather her strength. She closed her eyes. The pain was still there. But it felt far away now. Shock. Probably. Her body was protecting itself. 5 minutes, she whispered. Then I will move. I will find shelter. I will survive. The wind blew dust across her face. The 2 suns moved slowly across the purple sky. And Yuna, bleeding and broken, lay on the cold ground of an unknown moon. But she was not giving up. Humans never gave up. That was what made them different from all the other species in the galaxy. They were small. They were weak. They lived short lives, but they never, ever stopped fighting. Yuna opened her eyes again. 5 minutes was too long. Every minute she waited was a minute closer to death. She rolled onto her stomach. She put her hands flat on the ground. She pushed herself forward, 1 painful centimeter at a time. Somewhere on this moon, there had to be shelter. And she was going to find it, even if it killed her. Yuna crawled for what felt like hours. The pain in her leg had become a constant fire. Her arms were tired. Her chest hurt with every breath. But she kept moving. The landscape slowly changed. The flat, rocky ground gave way to small hills. Between the hills, she saw something that made her heart jump. Buildings. They were small and round, made of some kind of gray metal. They looked old and damaged. Some had holes in their walls. Others had collapsed completely. But they were buildings. That meant shelter. Yuna crawled faster. The buildings were maybe 100 meters away. It might as well have been 100 kilometers. But she did not stop. As she got closer, she saw more details. There were about 20 buildings in total. They formed a small circle around a central area. In the middle was something that might have been a well or a fountain. It was dry now. This was not a human settlement. The doors were too small. The windows were at strange heights. Some alien species had lived here once. But where were they now? Yuna reached the nearest building. The door was open, hanging from one hinge. She pulled herself inside. The floor was covered in dust. There was old furniture that she did not recognize, strange chairs with too many legs, tables at odd angles. In the corner, she saw what might have been a bed. It was warmer inside. Not much, but enough. The walls blocked the wind. Yuna pulled herself to the corner and leaned against the wall. She was exhausted. Her leg was still bleeding, even through the bandage. She needed to do something about that. She opened her emergency kit and found the medical spray. It was meant to seal wounds and stop bleeding. She sprayed it on her leg. The pain was incredible. She finally screamed, unable to hold it back anymore. Then it was over. The spray hardened into a protective shell over her wound. The bleeding stopped. Yuna sat there, breathing hard. Her whole body was shaking. From pain, from cold, from fear. "Okay," she said to herself. "Step 1 complete. I found shelter. Now I need to rest and wait for rescue. She checked her beacon. The green light was still blinking. Good. It was still working. She drank some water from her kit. She ate half a food bar. She needed to save the rest. The two suns were setting. Through the broken window, Yuna watched them sink below the horizon. The purple sky turned darker. Stars appeared. More than she had ever seen before. Then the cold really came. It was like nothing Yuna had ever felt. The temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on the walls. Her breath came out in white clouds. The emergency blanket was not enough. She would freeze to death before morning. Yuna looked around the room desperately. There had to be something she could use. Old blankets, clothing, anything. She crawled to the other side of the room. Behind a fallen piece of furniture, she found a pile of cloth. It was dirty and old, but it was thick. She pulled it over herself, adding layer after layer. Better. Not perfect, but better. Then, she heard the sound. It was soft and high, like a baby crying. Yuna froze. She listened hard. There it was again, coming from somewhere nearby. Another building. Maybe. Yuna's first thought was that she should ignore it. She was injured. She was cold. She could barely move. Whatever was making that sound was not her problem. But then she heard it again. Louder this time. More desperate. Damn it, Yuna whispered. She could not ignore it. She was human. Humans did not ignore cries for help. Slowly, painfully, Yuna crawled back to the door. The night was fully dark now. Both moons had risen, casting pale light over the abandoned settlement. The sound was coming from the building across the central area. Yuna started crawling toward it. The cold bit into her skin. Her fingers went numb. Her legs screamed with every movement, but she kept going. She reached the other building and pushed open the door. At first, she saw nothing. The room was dark. Then her eyes adjusted. In the corner, huddled together, were three small creatures. They had fur. Soft, gray fur that covered their entire bodies. Their faces were round with big eyes and small noses. They had 4 arms each and short legs. They were shaking with cold and fear. Cubs. They were cubs. Children. The biggest one saw Yuna first. It made a sound of terror and pushed the other two behind it. It was trying to protect them. It is okay, Yuna said softly. She held up her hands to show she was not a threat. I will not hurt you. The cubs did not understand her words, but they seemed to understand her tone. The biggest one stopped making scared sounds. It just watched her with its big, dark eyes. Yuna looked around the room. She saw more of those strange chairs. She saw broken dishes on the floor. She saw dark stains that might have been blood. And in the far corner, she saw 2 adult bodies. They were the same species as the cubs, but they were not moving. They would never move again. The parents. These were the parents. Yuna felt her heart break. These cubs were alone. Their parents were dead, and she could guess who had killed them. The same pirates who shot her down. The pirates must have attacked this settlement too. They had killed the adults and left. Maybe they did not see the cubs hiding. Maybe they did not care. Either way, these 3 little ones were orphans now. The smallest cub started crying again. It was hungry. Yuna could tell. The sound was the same sound that any hungry baby makes. No matter what species, she reached into her kit. She had 3 food bars left. She took one out and broke it into pieces. Here, she said softly. She held out a piece toward the cubs. They did not move. They were too scared. Yuna put the piece on the floor and pushed it toward them. Then she moved back, giving them space. The biggest cub watched her for a long moment. Then, slowly, it reached out and took the food. It sniffed it carefully. Then, it ate it. The cub's eyes went wide. It liked the taste. Yuna pushed more pieces forward. The other 2 cubs came out of hiding. They ate quickly, desperately. They had not eaten in days, probably. When the food bar was gone, all 3 cubs looked at Yuna with different eyes. Not scared anymore. Hopeful. I do not have much, Yuna told them. But I will share what I have. She was cold. She was hurt. She had limited supplies. Taking care of 3 alien cubs would make survival much harder. But what else could she do? Leave them to die? No. Never. Yuna opened her blanket. She gestured for the cubs to come closer. They hesitated. Then the smallest one walked forward. It pressed against Yuna's side. Its fur was soft and warm. The other 2 followed. Soon, all 3 cubs were pressed against her, sharing body heat. Yuna wrapped the blanket around all of them. She was surprised by how warm the cubs were. Their body temperature was higher than hers. Together, they were much warmer than she had been alone. We will survive this, Yuna told them. All of us. Together. 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 The cubs made soft sounds. They were not scared anymore. They were tired, and warm, and full. One by one, they fell asleep against her. Yuna stayed awake a little longer. She looked at the 3 small faces pressed against her. They trusted her now. They depended on her. She had no idea how she was going to save them. She could barely save herself, but she would find a way. She had to. Yuna closed her eyes. With 3 warm bodies against her, she finally stopped shivering. Tomorrow would be hard. But tonight, they were alive. That was enough. Morning came slowly on the frozen moon. The 2 suns rose one after the other, painting the purple sky with orange light. Inside the small building, Yuna woke to find 3 pairs of eyes staring at her. The cubs were awake. They were watching her face with curiosity and hope. Good morning, Yuna said softly. The biggest cub made a chirping sound. The other 2 joined in. Yuna smiled despite everything. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Her body was stiff from the cold night. Her leg throbbed with pain. Her ribs felt like broken glass inside her chest. But she was alive. The cubs were alive. That was what mattered. Yuna checked her supplies. 2 food bars. 2 bottles of water. The beacon was still blinking green. Rescue could come today. Or tomorrow. Or never. She needed to make a decision. The logical choice was clear. She should eat all the food herself. She should drink all the water herself. She was the one who needed to survive. She was the one who could be rescued. The cubs were aliens. They were not her responsibility. Their parents were dead. They would probably die too. Whether Yuna helped them or not, giving them food would only extend their suffering. This was the logical choice. Yuna looked at the smallest cub. It was pressing against her side, looking up at her with complete trust. I was never good at logic, she said. She broke a food bar into 4 pieces. 3 small pieces for the cubs. 1 small piece for herself. The cubs ate eagerly. Yuna ate slowly, making each bite last. After they finished, the biggest cub stood up. It walked to the door and looked outside, then looked back at Yuna. It made a questioning sound. You want to go out? Yuna asked. The cub chirped. Yuna knew she should stay inside. Moving would hurt. Moving could make her injuries worse. But the cubs needed things. Food, probably. Water, definitely. And if she was honest with herself, she needed to move too. Sitting in one place would not help her survive. Okay, she said. Let us explore. Getting up was terrible. Yuna used the wall to pull herself to her feet. Her left leg could not hold any weight at all. She would have to hop on her right leg. She found a piece of metal that could work as a crutch. It was not perfect, but it helped. The cubs walked beside her as she moved outside. They stayed close, never more than a few steps away. The biggest one kept looking up at her, as if making sure she was okay. They checked the other buildings one by one. Most were empty. Some had old equipment that Yuna did not recognize. One had more bodies. Yuna made sure the cubs did not see. In the 7th building, they found something useful. Containers. Dozens of them. Stacked against the wall. Yuna opened one and found dried meat inside. The cubs went crazy. They jumped and chirped and ran circles around her legs. This was their food. This was what their species ate. Take some, Yuna told them. Eat. They did not need to be told twice. The cubs grabbed pieces of meat and ate like they had been starving. Which, Yuna realized, they had been. She looked at the meat. She wondered if she could eat it too. Human stomachs were tough. They could handle most foods from most planets. She tried a small piece. It tasted strange but not bad. Like beef mixed with fish. Her stomach did not reject it. Good. Now they had more food. They found water too, in a tank behind one of the buildings. It was frozen solid, but Yuna used a piece of metal to break off chunks. She put the ice inside a container and held it against her body. Slowly, it melted. By midday, they had gathered enough food and water to last a week, maybe more. Yuna sat down to rest. Her leg was screaming. Her whole body was exhausted. But she felt something like hope. The smallest cub climbed into her lap. It looked up at her and made a soft sound. Then, it reached up and touched her face with one of its small hands. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not know why. I wish I knew your name, she said. I wish I could talk to you, the cub chirped. I am going to call you Bomb. Yuna decided. It means spring in my language. Because you are small and new. She looked at the middle cub. You will be Haru. It means day. She looked at the biggest cub. It was watching her with serious eyes. This one was brave. This one had tried to protect the others. And you are Gyul. Winter. Because you are strong and cold on the outside. But I think you are warm inside. End quote. The cubs did not understand her words. But they understood that she was giving them something important. Gyul chirped softly. Haru bounced up and down. Bomb pressed closer against her chest. That night, they slept together again. The cubs curled around Yuna like she was their mother. She wrapped her arms around them and held them close. She thought about her own mother back on Earth. She thought about her brother Tejo and his wedding. She thought about all the things she might never see again, but she also thought about these three small creatures who trusted her completely, who looked at her like she could save them. She would try. She would try with everything she had. The next 2 days passed slowly. Yuna's leg got worse. The medical spray was holding, but the wound was probably infected. She was getting weaker. Her fever came and went. She gave most of the human food to herself now. She needed the calories more than the cubs, who had plenty of their own food. But she still shared her water with them. Even when she was thirsty, the cubs took care of her too, in their own way. They brought her the softest cloths to lie on. They pressed against her when she shivered. Gyul even tried to feed her, pushing pieces of dried meat toward her mouth. On the third morning, Yuna could not get up. Her leg was swollen and red. The infection was spreading. Her fever was high. She was seeing things that were not there. I am sorry, she whispered to the cubs. I am so sorry. They did not understand. They just pressed closer, chirping with worry. Yuna looked at her beacon, still blinking green, still sending its signal. Please, she said to no one. Please send help. Not for me. For them. She closed her eyes. She was so tired. So very tired. The cubs lay on top of her, covering her with their warm bodies. They were trying to keep her warm. They were trying to save her, the same way she had tried to save them. Yuna smiled weakly. Even here, even dying, she was not alone. That meant something. That meant everything. She drifted in and out of sleep. Sometimes she dreamed of Earth, of green fields and blue skies, of her mother's cooking and her father's laugh, of Tejo teasing her like he always did. Sometimes she dreamed of the cubs, of them grown up and strong, of them living good lives somewhere safe, of them remembering the human who tried to help them. Gyul, she whispered in her fever. Take care of your siblings. Be strong. Be brave. The cub pressed its face against her hand. Haru, always stay curious. Always explore. Another small body shifted closer. Bomb. Never stop trusting. Never stop loving. The smallest cub chirped softly. Yuna did not know if she would wake up again. She did not know if rescue would come. She did not know what would happen to the cubs, but she knew she had made the right choice. She had chosen to care. She had chosen to love. She had chosen to fight for lives that were not her own. That was what humans did. That was what made them human. And if she died here, she would die knowing that she had lived up to that. The cubs held on to her as darkness came. They held on like she might fall, and in a way, she was falling. Falling into sleep. Falling into dreams. But even falling, she was not alone. Never alone. Yuna woke to the sound of engines. At first, she thought she was dreaming again. She had been dreaming of ships, of rescue, of going home. But this sound was different. It was harsh and ugly. It made her skin crawl. She opened her eyes. The cubs were already awake, pressing against her and shaking with fear. "What is it?" Yuna whispered. Through the broken window, she saw a ship landing in the central area of the settlement. It was not a rescue ship. It was black and covered with weapons. It was a pirate ship. They had come back. Yuna's heart turned to ice. She understood now. The pirates had attacked this settlement once before. They had killed the adults. They had taken what they wanted. And now they had returned to take more. Or maybe they had tracked her beacon. Maybe they wanted to finish what they started. Either way, they were here. And they were not friendly. Yuna watched as 3 figures climbed out of the ship. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and too many joints in their arms. Vakrin pirates. The worst kind. The Vakrin did not value life. They killed for fun. They sold slaves. They destroyed planets for profit. Every species in the galaxy feared them, and now 3 of them were standing just 50 meters away. "We need to hide," Yuna whispered to the cubs. Gyul chirped urgently and started pulling at her arm. The cub wanted her to get up, to run, to escape, but Yuna could not run. She could barely stand. Her leg was useless. Her fever was still high. She looked around the room. There was nowhere to hide. The building was too small, too open. If the pirates searched, they would find them. Yuna made a decision. "Stay here," she told the cubs. "Stay quiet. Do not move." She pushed them into the corner, behind a pile of old cloths. She covered them as best she could. They looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. "I will come back," she promised. "I will protect you." Then Yuna grabbed her metal crutch and started moving toward the door. Every step was agony. Her legs screamed at her. Her body wanted to collapse. But she kept moving. She had one weapon. In her emergency kit, there was a small plasma pistol. It was meant for emergencies only. It held 6 shots. 6 shots against 3 Vakrin pirates. The odds were not good, but Yuna had something the pirates did not have. She had something to protect. Something to fight for. She reached the door and looked outside. The pirates were moving through the settlement. They were checking buildings one by one. They were looking for anything valuable, or anyone alive. They would reach this building in minutes. Yuna needed a plan. She could not fight them directly. She could not run. She could not hide. But maybe she could surprise them. She looked at the building next to hers. It was half collapsed. The walls were unstable. One good push might bring the whole thing down. If she could lead the pirates there, if she could trap them inside, it was a terrible plan. It was the only plan. Yuna stepped outside, into the cold air. She stood in the open, making herself visible. "Hey!" she shouted. "Over here!" The 3 pirates turned. They saw her standing there, injured and alone. They made sounds that might have been laughter. "A human," one of them said. Its voice was like metal scraping on glass. "I thought we killed the human." "You missed," Yuna said. The pirates started walking toward her. They did not hurry. They knew she could not escape. They were enjoying this. Yuna started limping toward the collapsed building. She moved as fast as she could, but it was not fast enough. The pirates were getting closer. "Where are you going, little human?" another pirate called. There is nowhere to run. I am not running, Yuna said. She reached the building and went inside. The walls groaned. Dust fell from the ceiling. The whole structure was ready to fall. Yuna positioned herself in the center of the room. She waited. The pirates followed her inside, all three of them. They spread out, surrounding her. Their weapons were drawn. This is fun, the first pirate said. We like it when they fight. Do you? Yuna said. She was looking at the wall behind them. She was calculating angles and distances. Then, you will love this. She raised her pistol and fired, not at the pirates, at the supporting beam behind them. The beam exploded. The ceiling cracked, and then the entire wall started to fall. The pirates screamed. They tried to run, but they were too slow. Tons of metal and stone crashed down on top of them, but not all of them. One pirate had been standing closer to the door. It escaped the collapse, and now it was standing in the doorway, blocking Yuna's only exit. The pirate's face was twisted with rage. Its companion was buried under rubble, maybe dead. And this human had done it. I will kill you slowly, it hissed. Yuna raised her pistol. Her hand was shaking. She had 4 shots left. She fired. The shot hit the pirate in the shoulder. It stumbled back but did not fall. She fired again. This shot missed. Her vision was blurring. The fever was getting worse. The pirate laughed. It raised its own weapon. Yuna fired a 3rd time, then a 4th. Both shots hit. One in the chest, one in the leg. The pirate fell to its knees, but it was not dead. It was still holding its weapon. It was still aiming at her. Die, the pirate said. Yuna had no more shots. Her pistol was empty. She did the only thing she could do. She threw the pistol at the pirate's face. It was a lucky throw. The pistol hit the pirate right in the eye. The creature screamed and dropped its weapon. Yuna did not hesitate. She grabbed her metal crutch and swung it with all her strength. The crutch hit the pirate's head with a horrible crack. The creature fell backward and did not move again. Yuna stood there, breathing hard. Her whole body was shaking. She could not believe she was still alive. Then her leg gave out, and she collapsed. She lay on the cold ground, looking up at the sky. She had won. She had beaten 3 pirates with nothing but a pistol and a piece of metal, but she had paid a price. Her leg was bleeding again. Her fever was spiking. She could feel darkness closing in around her. The cubs, she whispered. I need to get back to the cubs. She tried to stand. She could not. She tried to crawl. Her arms would not work. All she could do was lie there, bleeding and broken, looking at the purple sky. Then she heard chirping. Gyul appeared above her. The cub's eyes were wide with fear and love. Behind Gyul, she could see Haru and Bam. They had left their hiding place. They had come to find her. I told you to stay, Yuna said weakly. Gyul chirped and pressed its face against hers. It is okay, Yuna said. I am okay. I just need to rest. But she was not okay. She could feel it. Something inside her was breaking. The cubs would not leave her. They surrounded her, pressing their warm bodies against hers. They were crying, making soft sounds of grief and fear. Yuna tried to smile. She tried to grin through the pain, to show them she was strong, to make them feel safe. Do not cry, she whispered. We are alive. We won. Gyul grabbed her hand and held it tight. Haru and Bam curled against her chest. Yuna looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, help was coming. It had to be. Her beacon was still working. Just hold on, she told herself. Just a little longer. She closed her eyes. The cubs clung to her like she might fall, and in the darkness, she held on. For them, for herself, for hope. The rescue ship came on the 5th day. Captain Minho was the first one out of the vessel. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray at his temples. He had been searching for Lieutenant Yuna since her distress call. He had not expected to find her alive. He definitely had not expected to find what was in front of him. The settlement was a mess. One building had completely collapsed. Bodies of Vakran pirates lay half buried in the rubble. And in the middle of it all, Lying on the cold ground was a human woman. She was unconscious. Her leg was wrapped in bloody bandages. Her face was pale and covered in sweat. She looked more dead than alive, but her arm was raised. In her hand, she still held a piece of metal, like she was ready to fight. And pressed against her body, refusing to leave her side, were 3 small alien cubs. "What in the stars?" Captain Minho whispered. The cubs looked up when the rescue team approached. The biggest one made a warning sound and moved in front of the woman, protecting her. "Easy, little ones," Minho said softly. "We are here to help." The cubs did not understand his words, but they understood that these new humans were not threats. Something about them was different from the pirates. Something gentle. Still, they did not move away from Yuna. They stayed close, watching every movement the rescue team made. Dr. Jisoo knelt beside Yuna and checked her vital signs. Her face went pale. "She is barely alive," the doctor said. "Infection in the leg, high fever, massive blood loss. It is a miracle she is breathing at all." "Can you save her?" Minho asked. "I will try." They brought Yuna onto the rescue ship. The cubs followed. They would not be separated from her, and no one had the heart to force them. On the ship, Dr. Jisoo worked for hours. She cleaned the infection. She gave Yuna new blood. She set her broken leg properly. She did everything medicine could do, and then she waited. For 2 days, Yuna did not wake up. She lay in the medical bed, breathing slowly, her body fighting to heal. The cubs never left her side. They took turns sleeping on her bed, always keeping at least one of them touching her. Gyul, the biggest cub, barely slept at all. It just watched Yuna's face, waiting for her eyes to open. Captain Minho contacted the Velen Council. The Velen were the species the cubs belonged to. They had a small empire in the neighboring sector. They were peaceful traders, known for their beautiful crafts and gentle nature. The council was shocked to learn what had happened to the settlement on the moon. They were devastated to hear about the dead, but they were also amazed. A human had saved 3 of their children. A human had fought pirates alone, injured and dying, to protect cubs that were not her own species. "This is unusual," the council leader said. "Humans are known to be territorial. They protect their own. But to protect strangers? To sacrifice for another species? This is not common." "It is not common," Captain Minho agreed. "But it is human." On the 3rd day, Yuna finally opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Gyul's face, inches from her own. The cub chirped with joy and pressed its forehead against hers. "Gyul," Yuna whispered. Her voice was weak, but she was smiling. "You are okay." Haru and Bomb climbed onto the bed too, chirping and crying and celebrating. They covered Yuna with their warm bodies, just like they had on the frozen moon. Dr. Jisoo came in and shooed them back gently. "Give her space," she said. "She needs to rest." But the cubs would not go far. They sat at the foot of her bed, watching her with big eyes full of love. "You saved them," Dr. Jisoo told Yuna. "You saved all 3 of them." Yuna shook her head weakly. "They saved me too. We saved each other." When the rescue ship reached the Velen homeworld, a crowd was waiting. Thousands of Velen had come to see the human who had protected their children. They lined the streets, watching silently as the ship landed. Yuna was still weak. She could not walk. They put her in a floating chair, and the cubs walked beside her, holding her hands with their small paws. The crowd parted as they moved through. Velen reached out to touch Yuna gently as she passed. Some were crying. Others were whispering words she did not understand. At the end of the street stood the council hall. The 5 leaders of the Velen were waiting on the steps. The oldest leader stepped forward. It was small and gray, with white fur around its face. Its eyes were kind. "Lieutenant Yuna of Earth," it said in careful human language. "You come to us as a stranger. You leave as family." Yuna did not know what to say. Tears were forming in her eyes. "Our children told us everything," the leader continued. "They cannot speak your language, But they told us in their own way. They told us how you shared your food when you were starving, how you held them when you were freezing, how you fought monsters when you were dying. The leader paused. Its eyes were wet too. You had every reason to let them die. It would have been logical. It would have helped you survive. But you chose differently. You chose love over logic. You chose others over yourself. The leader raised its hand. Another Velen came forward, carrying a small box. We have a title that we give to the greatest heroes of our people. In 10,000 years, we have never given it to someone from another species. Until now. Quote. The leader opened the box. Inside was a small crystal pendant on a silver chain. It glowed with soft light. Lieutenant Yuna. We name you Protector. The first human ever to receive this honor. You are now part of our people. Our doors are always open to you. Our hearts are always with you. The leader placed the pendant around Yuna's neck. The crowd erupted. Thousands of Velen made sounds of joy and celebration. They threw flowers into the air. They sang songs in their strange, beautiful language. Yuna sat in her floating chair, crying and laughing at the same time. The cubs climbed into her lap and hugged her tight. Thank you, Yuna whispered. Thank you, but the leader shook its head. No, Protector. Thank you. You have shown us what humans truly are. Not cold, not selfish, but warm, brave, full of love. That night, there was a feast. Yuna sat at the head of the table, with Gyul, Haru, and Bomb beside her. They had been officially adopted by a Velen family, but they made it clear that Yuna was their family too. Captain Minho sat nearby, watching with a smile. You know, he said, when I found you, I thought you were dead, lying there with nothing but a piece of metal in your hand. And those 3 little ones refusing to leave you. Yuna looked at the cubs. They were eating happily, their fear finally gone. I had to fight, she said. I had to try. They needed me. You could have died. I almost did die. Yuna smiled sadly. But some things are worth dying for. Some things are worth everything. Minho nodded slowly. That is what makes us human, I think. Years later, the story spread across the galaxy. Humans heard about Lieutenant Yuna and the 3 cubs she saved on a frozen moon. Other species heard about the human who fought pirates alone to protect children that were not her own. The story became a legend. It was told in schools and ships and stations all across the stars. It was the story that changed how other species saw humans, not as predators, not as conquerors, but as protectors. And on the Velen homeworld, in a garden full of flowers, there stood a statue. It showed a human woman sitting down, with 3 small cubs pressed against her. The woman was smiling, grinning through pain that was no longer there. Below the statue, in both Velen and human languages, were written these words. She tried to grin through the pain. The cubs clung to her like she might fall. But she never fell. She never let go. She was human. And in a house nearby, an old woman sat with 3 grown Velen who called her mother. They shared stories and laughter and love. Yuna had come to the stars looking for adventure. She had found something better. She had found family. And that, in the end, was the most human thing of all.